probably last lecture this year. You know, we have Christmas and no time at all. So we'll probably do something next year. When I talked to Neil last time, he said, well, you should continue a little bit in that areas of mysteries, you know, crop circles, flying saucers, whatever. And I remember I already talked about some of these things in the past, but the things don't stop, they continue all the time, so the new things are happening. And I felt, well, maybe it'd be a good idea to give you a bit of update as to how things are and how I see them, and then drift from there to who knows where, because we're talking about unreal realities in a sense, you know, and we are here not to listen things you can listen anywhere else, or you can read about anywhere else. We are always gathering here that something new comes, you know, which makes us wonder, makes us think, and perhaps appreciate. But my whole interest in giving these talks is not just to say things, because honestly and truly, I like to listen myself too, because that's the first time I hear what I'm saying, and it comes straight, you know, I never think about it, so I sometimes learn a few things myself, you know, and what is really important is to grow, you know, without being aware. Grass grows by itself, it just grows, and we as a people do the same. We don't need to grow consciously, we grow by the input we're getting, and as we need a food to nourish our bodies, we need also a spiritual food to nourish our spirits, and we do not know how good this nourishment might be except with distance, with time. In a few years back we might look and say, yeah, I notice I'm different now. Certain things interest me more than before, and a certain thing which interested me before doesn't grab me anymore. I have changed in many ways, but as long as we know that we are changing for a better, that's good. And my whole aim is to stimulate this something within which makes it good. I feel that the lives are very precious and they are very short, and opportunity we have now to become more than just a consumer and sort of participant in external world is something which is a blessing, because not too many people have that opportunities. There are many people who are hungry, but there are much more people who are spiritually hungry. I sort of see it around. People would like to reach deeper to their inner selves, reach to a realm of spiritual, but really there is not that much sometimes they can use as a help. Most of the books these days are really not worth the paper they are written on in this area. It's a mindless regurgitation, repetition of that what has been stated sometimes long time ago. Very, very little is new and original. Most of it is, I would call it, so-called workshop improvement, you know, just, you know, changing the words here and there. And even those who write sometimes don't know what the heck they're writing, and might not necessarily understand fully, because with these computers today you can do lots of search and paste and cut and merge and all that stuff. But I'm trying to always come out with sort of something homemade, you know, something fresh, something which is based on a first-hand experience. I like to sort of bring forth something which I'm confident about, that it came from experience rather than just from a knowledge, because really knowledge ahead of experience is a curse of the mind, you know, and there's lots of people like that, you know. And I just want to sort of resonate on a hard level, not to make you intellectually stimulated, you know. Stimulation of an intellect sometimes is no different than stimulation of a body by using drugs, you know. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but it's the heart, it's the soul which counts, you know. The rest, well, fine, we can talk about it later. But as far as, you know, some of these things I just mentioned, you know, these mysteries, so-called mysteries, They've always been with us, and reality is a peculiar thing. Reality is not uniform. There is a consensus reality we all know, and I mentioned it many times, and that allows to support us in our existence. We know certain things which are so-called facts, like mathematical equations, you know, we can know what time is it and all that stuff. But in reality, you know, we are very enclosed. We might see the same things, but when you are asked to describe them, we might not describe them the same way. We might hear the same thing. When you are asked to repeat what you heard, it might be very different. So even at that level, our realities are not necessarily the same. But majority of people tend to subscribe to this so-called approved reality. It's good because it keeps you in a current worldview. You know, if you share what everybody else believes, you feel you are part of the crowd. You know, but if you reject that what everybody believes, well, you have your own reality against others, and you might feel lonely. You might feel that you don't belong. You might be insecure because you don't have the facts which are supportive. You have the facts which are only in your head because you came to that conclusion. And I always like people who are not giving up, who are not signing to this major consensus reality, because in a way it's very convenient, because for a world to run smoothly, it'd be ideal if everybody thought the same way, everybody believed the same thing. So you tell something and they all would accept it at that level. There'd be no questioning, you know, and that's what obviously commercialism is all about, you know, try to streamline people, cut them to the level of the lowest common denominator, so they can buy whatever is said. It's good for politicians too, but people who are independent, who think differently, who question things, you know, they're shaking that whole setup, and that's what I'm here for, you know, to give you a little bit more ammunition to shake that whole setup and to think differently, because at the end of the day, it's your life you're living. And if you're living it like everybody else, what uniqueness is all about it, you know? You are like everybody else. In order to be different, you have to do different things. You have to believe in different things. And obviously, you do. In many ways, it's good and it's bad, because if you are different, then you are always a stranger in a crowd that they are all alike, you know? So you have to mind your cues and whatever way you speak, because they might say, oh, it's some weird person here, you know. But at the same time, you know, you bump into people and interesting events which other people have no clue even exists. And one of these is the mysteries, you know, of things, you know. As a rule, 95% of population probably never heard of these things. And if they did, they probably rejected them outright, because, you know, people usually, they think they know. Put it this way, ignorance is the absence of information. So if you don't have information, you are ignorant. But there is such a thing as a double ignorance. And double ignorance is a belief that you know that what you don't know. So you think you know, but you don't know. And that's a double ignorance. And this so-called situation actually is delusional. So the people who believe in that, who believe that they know that what they don't know, are deluded. So they have delusion mind. And delusion mind is a deranged mind. So I would say that there's a lot of deranged people, you know, deranged minds around us, you know. Because we should never believe until we reach a stage where we either know or we don't know. But belief means accepting something without really putting too much thought into it. You don't need to believe that 2 and 2 is 4, you know. I mean, you know that's fact, you know. Until you know it, you might suspend your judgment, you know. You might say, well, I don't know. And that's good, you know. You have to learn to discriminate at that level, you know, to learn. Because when you believe, your learning stops. When you accept something, yeah, I believe in that, what else is to seek and to know about it, you know. So it's better to always be open-ended in these things and try to sort of give a time And you know that sometimes your belief change, you know, you have a belief and then new information start coming in, perhaps, and your belief might change. So you resist that change, perhaps, but eventually it will be stronger than your belief, you know, and you change. But you can save yourself that hassle if you just suspend your judgment. Just collect the information, soak it in, and say, oh, well, who knows, maybe. And one day, you know, you might start thinking, oh, wow, it clicks in, and it's not anymore belief, it's knowing, you know, you really know. And so we have to learn something for us, which we know, and build our foundation on something which is more solid than just belief, you know. And so now we're talking about these flying saucers and crop circles and Sasquatch and ghosts and all kind of stuff. Well, the things are and things are not, you know. It depends again on what side, you know, you are. But irrespective of these opinions, there is other reality which sort of goes on. And that reality is something we either buy to or we reject. But we cannot change that reality. It just goes on. So when we talk about, for example, I look on all these mysteries, more I study them, and I spend pretty well all my life investigating things which other people don't want to. I prefer to investigate things people laugh at. They don't see any value in it, you know, because that's where the secret, that's where the beauty lies, you know, that's where you learn the most, you know. And you know things which majority of people would not know, because if you are investigating that, what is being rejected by nearly everybody, if you're looking seriously on things which people laugh at, you know, you learn something which they would never know. To investigate what everybody is investigating, what good it is, you know. You can ask, you don't need to investigate, you can save yourself time with asking these experts who've been into it, you know. So, to me, you know, the knowledge I acquired is sort of very precious by the virtue of the fact that it's very rare. And it doesn't stop me to study traditional stuff and to see how it matches that what I stumbled across. And so, for example, issue of flying saucers obviously grabbed me since I've been a young guy, but informations were never sufficient because they've been sort of so contradictory in many ways, you know, and I don't like to jump into conclusions. I don't want to say, well, that's it, the flying saucer is for real, it's built by somebody from some other planet and they're coming up here to whatever, as people believe. If I have accepted that theory, that would be it for me. I would not probe further. And there are others who would say, no, it's all works of devil, you know, these flying saucers, you know, it's a figment of your imagination, you hallucinate, or whatever. Again, if I accepted that theory, I would probably not go further. I listen, and I feel that we never know what it might be good for in the future. So I don't discriminate. I don't try to say, well, this is only the area I'm focusing on, because that already predisposes certain hypothesis, this already predisposes certain conviction, which is based on your belief. And I feel that being neutral, you know, in that whole thing, and let just thing rub, you know, it eventually sorts itself out, you know. That's the beauty of it, that given sufficient time and given sufficient input of informations, eventually you would start feeling your certainty in some ways, what it all might be about. And our judgments are based on informations. No, if we don't know anything, how we can judge something, you know, properly? Our judgments are as good as the information we have. So more information we get, more likely our judgment would also reflect that. If everybody gets the same information, if everybody believes in the same things, how anybody can create something different? Your conclusions, your judgment will reflect that what you digested, that what you know. So it's a responsibility in some ways of each individual to assert its own uniqueness by trying to look on it from a different angle, because that way you can come to a different conclusion. And it's much better to be of an opinion which might not be necessarily the opinion of everybody else, because you know you took it and you came to that conclusion, not because it just pops into your head, but because you have gathered so much which was inevitable to. So that's why I'm saying, you know, original mind think original things. And the reason why they think original things, because they might have informations which are not available to the others. If you listen to television and you get everything from what you heard on television, or if you read the same newspaper and the same books, the opinion would be the same. And it's not even a thought, it's just regurgitation. I heard on television yesterday that, or whatever. And I'm not against informations, you know, they can come from wherever, as long as it is something which fits to your. Couple of lectures back, I was talking about these people who can live without food. I don't know who been on a lecture, I remember it, but I mentioned Teresa von Neumann, you know, from Gamba or whatever, who lived without food for over 30 years, and she was saint, and you know, well, you read yesterday, 2 days ago, in a newspaper news, I mean, there was a big article about this guy. It was carried worldwide. It came, I read it in a Global Mail, but it was from international press. I got clipping from Herald in Australia on it and all. About this Indian guy who is 76 years old, and he have not eaten nor drunk a drop of water for the last 68 years. And so he's in a hospital somewhere in India, and there was about 400 doctors trying to figure out what the heck is going on. They locked him into the room, and he had nothing to drink, nothing to eat, and they've been sort of x-raying him and doing all kind of experiments, and they say, yeah, it's weird, but it's true, he has not cheated, at least here, so as I'm trying to say, I should think at that time, there's all kinds of people like that. Well, this is one of the last of them, you know, so, you know, things continue, mysteries are everywhere, but mysteries don't sort of get attention. And so that's why they are mysteries. And if you are not interested about certain things, you would never know about the things. You know, we all sort of focus. We feed ourselves to a certain track, and that's our reality. And in that reality, we would know only that what we have decided to know. So if you are interested, let's say, about people who can live without food, you know, you probably know more than I have mentioned. You would know everybody who's been recorded that he was sort of living without eating. And there is that whole movement in Australia, it's called breatharian. You probably never heard about it, but there's this woman, I forgot her name, but she was in a newspaper about half a year ago, because one of her followers sort of died, you know, in the process of not eating, but she claims that you can live without eating just by breathing, you know. And so she developed the whole program, which is very logical. I have read it, and I said, yeah, I might do the trick. And if you survive, then you can carry on, because I think you must not eat for about 60 days and all, and if you crack that one, you know, you can continue. But some people obviously fail, and so she got into trouble. But there are attempts. There are people who are trying to do impossible. There was actually a part of this guy, I was just saying, who is in a hospital because he was not, you know, like participating in the festivities we do, you know. There was another guy who is being investigated. It's funny how it goes in clusters. And it appeared about 2 weeks ago, who doesn't eat at all, and he claims that his nourishment comes from the sun. So he would every day stare into the sun for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or half an hour, totally mesmerized like, and that's all what he needs to do. So it goes in a wave. So this is one of the big mysteries, and obviously when you look on it from the conventional standpoint of view, you would automatically presume that it cannot happen, that the guy must be cheating, you know. And this is the problem with people who think that way, because those who accuse somebody of cheating are themselves capable of cheating, and so they think that because they can do something like everybody else is in the same category. But I would say that because they are not aware of this other reality, I'm saying, you know, depending where you ship yourself. If you believe in certain things, certain things would be happening. If you are into sort of collecting train sets and building little steam engines, well, I can assure you that given sufficient time, you would know lots of people who are like you, collecting trains and build the steam engines. And you'd be amazed, you know, that people who are not interested about these things have never met anybody who collect little trains and build a steam engine. So that's how it goes in life, that once we focus on something, somehow path ahead of us is sort of littered with all these interests, you know. So if you do square dancing, you know lots of square dances. But those who don't do square dancing, how many of you know square dances? You know, that's how it goes in life, you know. We just know very little about what's going next, you know, to us or around us, you know, because we don't plug into everything. So we do this so-called section. We are expert in that. That's our reality, and in that everything is real. Everything outside of that reality, we reject. So what? Never seen, never heard of. How it can be? After all, I'm the arbitrator of what is and what is not possible. That's how ignorant people think. And so, obviously, we have one reality which we somehow believe is the only reality. But in reality, you know, infinite number of them. Some might be so advanced that would take centuries of evolution before others can catch up with. And some are so primitive that it takes eons of devolution before somebody can sing so long, you know. And so that's how it goes. Never judge other people, because you never know what drama they hear, you know, what is their reality. Always look on yourself and say, well, how I am today as opposed to a year ago or something. Am I doing some progress, or nothing new happened to me? Because if nothing happens to you, you slept, you know, you have not moved very far, you know. We all have to move, you know, we have to move, and by moving we create life, in so to speak. We are absorbing the time given to us to a certain sort of tangible result, which would be a knowledge, improvement, and obviously perception. Because we perceive around us initially very crudely, just using our eyes, our ears, our senses, you know, smell, touch, and all that. But as we evolve, we start to use our brain, our intellect, we start to refine the way how we see things around us, and eventually, when we get really a bit more evolved, we start perceiving on levels we don't even know exist yet, until we start to perceiving in that level, which goes beyond these so-called senses. You know, you would suddenly realize that you know certain things just like that. How the heck do you know them just like that? Because it's a new level of perception, and that perception is so much more sophisticated that it allows you to know things just like that. You don't need to go and study them at length. You don't need to sort of concern yourself about, well, it's not logical or it's not possible. Things just are, because as we evolve further and further, we discover that what is, that is. Whatever comes to our mind is. Until it comes to our mind, it is not. And you start thinking about it, that's how our awareness grows, by knowing. And if we don't know it, it doesn't matter how important or unimportant it might be. We know nothing about it. But once we know something, you know, even if it is only a knowledge of one individual, it is still alive and can be repeated and can be shared. Whether it's in mind or outside of mind, it's moot point. Because at the end of the day, you will discover that everything which is around us, the whole world we live in, is a figment of our imagination. It had to be first in our mind before we can transfer that into reality. The chair you're sitting in, somebody had to conceive, you know, whatever it is. So the world is created from within to without. So do not be afraid to think crazy things. Because once you give them life in your thoughts, it's only a question of time before they can actually come and knock on your door. And that's what I feel, that's a big danger, you know. We are creative beings, and I mean creative by the big C. Our thoughts, our utterances, would create that reality, because once you conceive it and you state it, it is. And I believe, and I probably mentioned it before, that creation of the whole earth, so to speak, with all the floras and all kind of variations and all, it was a figment of people's imagination. It was not something which came from outside. It was something which came from inside to outside. But, you know, if we have no rules on creation, it's a nightmare. It creates havoc. Because you get this guy, you know, like I said, years and years and years and years ago, when Earth was populated by very simple people who had a different belief system, because their belief was based on a whatever come to their heads. And because it already been perceived, it already existed. It was only a question of time before it came. So the guy sleeps in a bush somewhere in a forest, isolated from anybody else, and suddenly he get a nightmare. And in his nightmare, there's some new animals is chasing him all over the place with a long snout and all. And a couple of days later, there he goes, and sure enough, there it is, and goes after him. And I think that's how reality comes to being, instantaneously. It's a creation of a mind. All this sort of Arthur Ford, you know, in his books, Book of the Dawn, and all kind of, you know, 3 of them actually very critical. He shows millions and millions of these coincidences, falling frogs and things like that, you know, the beings, and you can hear all kind of stuff. And I think that this is really true, that the mind would be able to create conditions where suddenly all that would happen. And so, because nobody told people not to fool like that, they fooled and created all these monsters. You know, the whole world was populated because people had a fertile imagination. So what happened? Those who got smart and they saw it happening, they said, "Oh well, we better stop that." So they put the brakes on it by saying, "Well, okay, fine. You know, here we have a good book. You know, it's a holy book. I'm not specifically pointing any; they apply to all of them. And it says that you should not call spirits, and it says you should not do this and that, and all, in order that people don't do these things, you know, to prohibit them, because our mind is a creative, and so in your mind you search, your internal luminosity, your spiritual light is going, and suddenly focuses on something in the darkness of the universe, and it focuses and illuminates the idea, illuminates something. And when your consciousness gets aware of it, you know, it's like a mirror, imprints it and bang, and sooner or later it comes to be. If you study these books about how to achieve things, how to be successful, how to win, it's all based on the same principle. Strong belief, do not doubt. Bible says, you know, whoever believes, you know, and ask for it and pray for it would get it, you know, and all kind of stuff. All the positive thinking and all the creative potential comes from a strong conviction, which already is accomplished in your mind. Not the anticipation of being rich makes you rich, but seeing yourself already rich in your mind will make you rich in reality. Anticipation of being healthy does not bring you a health, but seeing yourself healthy already would correct that infirmity or that your health, you know. So once you accept certain things into your mind as it already is, as it already happened, it's only a question of time before it comes and happens. So we have to be very careful sometimes when we know that this is true, how we think and how we create the reality around us. And you know pretty well, it's not a heavy concentration which brings the results. Every one of you here had an experience that something only flashed your mind, you know, just in passing, without paying attention. And it happened. You just only realize, yeah, I thought of it, but never even occurred to me. That's the whole thing, that when it occurs to you and you try to focus on it, it doesn't work. It has to be just in passing. You make a statement, it's done, and life goes on. So it's this, by the corner of an eye, I glance something. Well, I will say, by the corner of your thought, whatever, of your mind, you created something, and that's when it all comes from. So if you learn how to work on that level, you you can succeed in many things. You know, you can create for yourself realities which you only dreamt what they become. So when we talk about these flying saucers, you know, in some peculiar way, after years and years of crashing that in my mind what it is and where it comes from and do I believe in it or not believe in it, and reading about it and listening to all kinds of stories, you know, I started to believe that, yeah, the things are. I'm not saying that I know what they are, but I know that they are. And for those who believe that they are mechanical contraption, there would be mechanical contraption, and they would manifest themselves to that type of believers as a mechanical contraption to reinforce their belief, because as I've said, our mind tend to create just in passing, you know, whatever comes to our head. But those others who believe that it might be something different, it would confirm their belief and it would be something different. For example, biological entities, some sort of new species of life which can take a shape or shapeshifter, so to speak, which might not be what they appear to, but they are still. I have investigated a number of contactees who've been very isolated from the mainstream, so they've been not contaminated by the traditional law or how the alien should look and how aliens should behave and what sort of flying saucer should arrive in. And these people have told me certain things which they strongly believe it was absolutely real, and I do believe it was real for them, which led me to believe that we are dealing with a dimension which would be very akin to the spiritual dimension. When people die, they are in a dimension which we call afterlife. And they can come back in a form of materialized beings sometimes, if the conditions are right, and be undistinguishable from those who are alive. So I feel that some of these things, like some of the flying saucers, might be based on the same level of reality. They just pop into our world, into our reality. They clothe themselves with a matter, so they create impression of being sort of from other planets, because after all they have all the characteristics of a being, physical essence, you know, they might be dressed and they come in some sort of contraption. But it can be nothing else than interplay between the brain of the one who believes it or sees it, and between the one who can confirm that reality by appearing in already preconceived belief, you know, and that's the trick, you know, that I start to believe that these things are, but they are in a shapes and forms which becomes as believable as possible. So more we sort of streamline how alien should look, you know, more likely that alien would look when he appears. You know. So it confirms the general belief. After all, it's not only I. Books are full of this description. You see, but I'm looking on those who have not read these books. So these guys are appearing to them in an entirely different shape and form, which leads me to believe that it is the reinforcement of reality by consensus, and that's why I'm saying the future is a consensus. Today, when we start to believe in certain things, we are on a way of creating that sooner or later. So our whole world, which is alive and responding to every our thought, try to please us, because we are the creators, and so we create a hell and we create a heaven. If we all believe that the world is full of terrorists, man, I can assure you, the world will be full of terrorists. And if we believe that the world is full of beauty, the world will be full of beauty. And if you read today's what's happening worldwide, how people believe and all, it's horrifying because it's happening. You know, more we're talking about it, it only takes a couple of, you know, weeks, months, years, whatever, who cares? But it comes and haunts you. So it makes no difference. We feel we have nothing to do with it. But in reality, we have everything to do with it, you know. And so, like I said, once we spiritually move and we evolve, we have certain responsibility to neutralize some of this crazy stuff which is going around us by the right beliefs, inserting into it our belief, which try to counteract this doom and gloom sometimes and pessimism. because in a sense, you know, everything is illusion, and we do participate in that illusion. Whether it's a mystery, mystery is nothing else than an occurrence which is very rare. But everything is mystery. Birth of a child is a mystery. Laying of an egg and developing a chicken is mystery. Everything is mystery. The world is full of miracles, but they are everyday ones, so we take them for granted and we don't see them as a mystery. But the point is that we cannot explain it like many other things. And what I'm saying is that we're looking on phenomena. Effects are that what fascinates us. But to find a cause, you know, that's more difficult. And a cause usually never comes from material. In order to look on a concept of creation, you have to go beyond material. You have to go to the darkness, to that nothingness from everything's ground. You know. That's why darkness is so important. You know, nothing grows in a light. You have to plant the seed, the roots into the darkness, the womb, whatever it is, everything grows from darkness. And so darkness is more than just opposite to light, you know. But we don't understand these things. We only judge by what we see, but we cannot very much foresee, and that's the whole thing. You have to foresee. Then you go into the cause. Before everybody would see the effect, you would already know what to expect. You know, that's why, you know, we're talking about certain faculties which some people might have, but they're just more sensitive. You're just going more deeper towards the cause, you know, and you can develop that. That sensitivity is a gift of your evolution. I think that there is no uniformity in evolution. You know, we feel, well, we have evolved, and we created these theories, these fairy tales, you know, how we jumped here and there, and from frog we become a cat or whatever, and just life went on until we are what we are. Well, it might not be so at all. You know, we based everything on assumption of instantaneous. I believe very strongly in that, you know, and like I said, I could spend the rest of my life providing the evidence in support of it. There are books and there are events recorded, which clearly indicates that things are very possible. Those who are interested about, let's say, spiritual stuff, especially physical mediumship, would realize that apports and spiritual manifestation are instantaneous, you know. So it can happen there, it can happen everywhere, you know, you can create from nothing, you know, after all, what is nothing? I tried to raise that issue quite a few lectures back, you know, it's very complex phenomenon, nothing. By simple fact that we know that it is not nothing, you know, because if you can perceive what is nothing, it's a value, you know, awareness of something, even if you call it nothing, is awareness of it, you know, it is just much more complex than we feel. Our problem is sometimes terminology. We do not really understand sometimes what we're trying to even express, and we agree on certain terms, which might be sort of stopgap in a process of growth and evolution, not a beginning, but to really go and penetrate beyond that type of awareness, when we cannot distinguish, we lose the meaning of what it means, you know, that's when we are dealing with the origins, you know, from which things comes, and that's leads me to these incredible capabilities. When I said, you know, when you believe it shall happen, we have legacy of all kind of architectural, archaeological treasures which are totally forbidden because they defy our understanding of reality. They portray civilizations or technological achievements far in excess what we would assign to these so-called primitive people. There are books about it. For example, one book is called Forbidden Archaeology by a chap called Klimo, and you can get that book from Amazon.com. It's quite a reading, it's quite an opener, you know, eye-opener. It's a big book, nearly 900 pages, but it has lots of pictures in it, and it basically deals only with issues which are contrary to general theories and beliefs. But they nonetheless exist in museums all over the world, and they just are not shown because it cannot be explained. And when you read these things, you realize that we live again in a sort of a big lie, I would call it, because reality is different, but we have agreed, irrespective of the facts, this is how it is. This is the story of our origin, this is the story of our progress, and facts would not shatter that, so let's get rid of them. And the more you learn about this finer perception of reality, as I was talking, the more you realize how crude is the consensus reality, how primitive are the beliefs, but how vital they are for the world to be what the world is today. But that doesn't mean that because nobody grows, you would stop growing yourself. You know, you should go boldly beyond all this, what is belief. Question everything, because if you ask yourself, you would get an answer. If you search, you would find what you're looking for, and you don't need to worry whatsoever whether you know anything about it or no. You just put your mind into it, and everything will come to you. You don't need to wait until you have all the tools necessary. Tools will come. Everything will happen to you. Reality cooperates, you know. When you are on a quest for some knowledge, for some answer, and many of you notice, things start happening. You meet strange people, they point you in the right direction. Strange things happen here and there before you realize, wow. But you have to start walking. You have to do something. And as you are searching something, whether it's answer for flying saucers, whether it's answer for crop circles, whether it's answer for anything else, that same thing is searching you. And at a certain point, you meet, and there is a flash, and you say, wow, I have that experience. I know. Otherwise, you would have to wait until somebody tells you, and then you be taking in something which might not be necessarily at all what you've been trying to find out, you know. But the point is that everything is based on desire. To us, truth usually is that what we like to hear or what we like to hear. So that's when we go. We do have a bias how we see certain things, because we might have subconsciously developed certain sequence which predispose us always to react that way because of likes or because of our dislikes. But when you are using your reason purely, you must eliminate all these and not really to get affected, because our explanation of anything is usually just justifying after the fact. You know, we reason it, but we have not really thought of it. And so that's why we have certain facts presented to people. These facts are identical in presentation, but you get two different opinions. How it can be? What let two people see differently if it is the same thing? You have to ask yourself, what went wrong with reasoning? And that's the whole thing, that we are predisposed. We have a predisposition to judge, and we do not know why we're even doing it. And it will take a lot of backtracking before you come to a real understanding, but there is a way. But that's why I said, don't try to make beliefs, just collect information. You hear about flying saucers, you don't know whether they are not yet at this stage. You might have a belief, but belief can stop you from searching. So accept, you know, that you've heard about them and you collect this information. I can assure you, at a certain point, you know, you start to see much clearly what's going on, and you'll be amazed how that reality dawns on you, and you'll be no more belief. You feel you are involved rather than interested about you be involved, you know. And there's a big difference, as I've said sometimes, between being involved and being interested. Chicken might be interested what happened to her egg, but pig is definitely involved if it is a bacon on a plate, you know. So I feel there is a big difference for those who jump and get involved and those who are just interested. It's that commitment which makes the difference. You might be interested about a religion, but there's a big difference being involved in practicing it, you know. And I just somehow feel that these days we live in these lazy times where people very rarely get involved. It's just interest, and it's just other way of entertainment, you know, of the mind. But I always say, every knowledge, everything which comes to you, does something to you. It's a form of energy which is being transferred in your comprehension, and it causes the effect. And you might not know what it would do to you. It might be pleasing at that moment, but it might be a detrimental later. It might be a sweet dream, you know, but it might be a nightmare eventually. So we have to learn and be mindful always that when we expose ourselves to anything, you know, that something would do something to us too. There is never an action without reaction. And so the way we choose how we interact with the world around us also means that we choose how we eventually turn out. Because what we are today, at this particular moment, is a total sum of everything what we have been before. And it cannot be changed. So if you feel that what you are today might not necessarily be something you are 100% in approval of, you start asking yourself, well, what do I do to be different? Maybe it's the wrong people you're mingling with. Maybe it's the wrong work you are involved with. Maybe it's a wrong thought, wrong spiritual food you're feeding yourselves. But we can change, but we have to address ourselves. Otherwise, one day you might ask yourself, what have I become? It was not my intention when I was born. It was not my intention when I was young. And look on me. You know, my life is wasted perhaps, you know, because I have never achieved my potential, my dreams, all them. So I would urge you very strongly to be mindful of a power within each of you to create realities. Every belief you have brings you close to reality of that. If I believe in flying saucers, it's not just a dream, it's become very real. And it would predispose me in a certain way, behaving in line with my belief. I might spend money in that direction instead of spending on something else. I might kill my time doing that instead of doing something else. So we pay the price. Every belief we have, everything we search for, we have to give something for it which is equivalent, either in health or energy or a combination. We have to give a time which never comes back. So we might as well have a certain inclination which we build within us, which are in the right direction. Inclination which open to us reality of the world we might not know very much about today, but we sure will know more about tomorrow if we follow it. You know, to just close yourself to a general statement, well, there's nothing after we die. It's a very pitiful way of dealing with reality of eternal, because that definitely is. The fact that we don't believe in it or know nothing about it does not in any way affect that reality. That's what I was saying at the beginning. We might as well adjust ourselves from the knowledge already available, because in some peculiar way, whatever you are interested about, I can assure you, it might not be unique. If you really search deep, you'll find out that there were others like you, which only show that, you know, you might be on the right track, because it's not a figment of your imagination, but it's a figment of other minds' imaginations. Whatever hobby you might develop, whatever interest you might find, you'll discover that there is somebody somewhere, or was somebody somewhere, who already passed on the same way. So, all what I'm saying is, when I'm talking about the mysteries, I'm very generally interested, because I do not know how any of these things fits into the great puzzle called life. I don't know whether it's good to know about flying saucers or bad. If I accept that reality, will that expand my belief system? Will it expand my horizon? Will it expand it for better or for worse? What other beliefs it will knock out of my mind if I accept the reality of afterlife? We have to ask always ourselves how it would change us. Because less we believe, less we know, more fixed we are in what we are, and more narrow-minded we might be, and more strong-headed, and obviously bigoted in our views. So we have to be flexible. We always should allow for something to slip in and out. We should never be closed in our answers, in our thinking. We should be always open to a possibility. It doesn't matter how impossible it might be. We should be always open, but we should not be judgmental, because we might eat our own words eventually. We just let it go, because there is a mechanism within us, which is much more sophisticated, much wiser than we sometimes think, because our ego and our pride and things do blind us to many realities which are very subtle, and it's very hard to hear them when we speak so loudly with our own personalities and our egos and all that stuff. So one way in search of any knowledge is to be humble, not to lay down conditions. I want the things to manifest under such and such a conditions. Otherwise I don't believe in it. I want this and that or else. Why not just look? Why not just feel it? Not to say, I want, but I see, I hear, I sense, I feel. That's all. That's why we have senses for. Let the mind sleep. I've discovered that I was never as wrong as when I tried to be logical. Every time I tried to think about things, I took myself out of everything, or into something. Logic, is not a good way to deal with what your instinct, your feelings, they are much more deeper, much more refined, and usually they are more accurate. Sometimes, and all of you know, I wish I would listen to my first instinct rather than my brain telling me, because usually that's how it goes. We have a world we live in, and this world wants to be rational for any cost. We have eliminated out of it any possibility of emotion, any possibility of so-called paranormal, supernormal. And we feel that with our mind, and now we feel, well, we don't even mind. We don't need a mind, we need a computer. With our machinery, we can answer everything. Well, it's a tall quest, I don't think it would ever work. I think the more sensitive we are, obviously more fragile we are, because sensitivity obviously in some ways represents a sophistication. Sophistication of a soul, advancement of a spirit, and maybe even intellect. And crudeness is exactly opposite. We don't have sympathy, empathy. We are not sensitive to the world, to the people, to nothing. We purely calculate like a machine. We have converted ourselves from something which was alive and unique to something which is half dead and common, and so we have to shy from that. We live in a beautiful world if we make it beautiful, and we live in a terrible world if we accept that world. And I can see how quickly we are sinking down there, how quickly as a civilization we are losing this refinement, that sophistication, and replacing it with something which really is abhorrent, and in some way we would all equal. Somebody smart a long time ago said, right at the beginning we have fight against, so we don't see the end, meaning, we all know what's coming, if nothing is done. So we have to fight against it now. So we don't see the end. We don't see the nightmare. And that's on many levels. We have a freedom individually isolate ourselves to a great extent from these things. But still, we live amongst the people. We live in a world. We might not be of this world, but just simple fact that we live in it, we are tainted, and we have to try to minimize that interference. I think I mentioned the story of that traveler who was going from one city into the other, and in midway somehow he got lost, and he happened to pass by the house, and there was a guy on the porch, and so he asked that guy, "Hey, am I going right to the city B?" And he sort of was asked by that guy, "Well, where are you going from?" He says, "Oh, I'm going from city A." And he says, "Why you are leaving that city?" He says, "Oh, I couldn't stand it. Just dreadful. Unemployment, people are nasty to each other, everything is dirty, people shooting each other, pollution, just not good at all, so I'm going to the city B." And the man said, "Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that city there, that city B is the same like the city A, you know." And sure enough, and then months later, other men was passing by, again going to city B from city A, and he got lost, and he asked this guy, and the guy asked me, "Well, why you left that place?" He said, "Well, I didn't want it really. It's a beautiful place, you know. I have friends there, and everything was fine, and just all the glory." He said, "But, you know, I got a job opportunity in that city B, and I have a family, and I wanted to make sure that I can give the best I can, and that's a great opportunity." And I said, "Well, don't worry. There's nothing to worry about. That city B is exactly the same like city A. They are nice people and all that." So basically what he was trying to say is that we create our own realities. We cannot escape reality. If we are miserable in one place, I can assure you by moving, you know, you find the same misery in the new place, you know. You have no friends in one place, I can assure you will have a hard time to find the friends in a new place. Everything which is external is reflected from your internal. If you are rich within you, you know, you carry that wealth wherever you go. If you are intelligent in one place, you'll be intelligent in the other place. If you are compassionate and you have understanding, you'll be still compassionate, you'll be understanding. You know, the funny is that lots of people feel that their circumstances in lives will change by not changing themselves, by still doing the same things, and it cannot happen. In order to be different, you cannot maintain the same things and to be different. You have to seek change, and then change would come. So we all have an option. We all always can change whatever we want to change at any given point. But all what we need to do is to change our mind, and everything else will follow. We have to change our heart. There is no external satisfaction if there is no internal anticipation of that proper satisfaction. We have to create ourselves within before we can reflect that without, you know. So we have to be in a harmony. If we don't have our internal development in place, then the external had nowhere to reflect. You know, it would not really work. We have to first create beauty within in order to experience beauty on outside. And there is no mystery to it. You can go to all kind of classes, you can study to be better, but that's only interest. When you get involved to be better, you'll be better. You find a way. There is that voice within you which tells you what's good and what's bad for you. You don't need to read books about it. Listen yourself. Give up on all the wisdom of others. Give up on all the religious, you know, explanations. Give up on all the scientific explanations. Listen your own soul, and you will discover that that's your best friend, and it will never ever fool you. You would understand better than if you tried, because we carry within us all the microcosm we represent, you know. Is within us. Macrocosm and microcosm just reflect each other. They might be different in order of magnitude, but they are the same as far as quality goes. So if you have your internal universe, you've created beautiful life in your external universe. I feel that majority of people are empty. They have no real beliefs. And so they cannot reflect within that what they see without. They might see miracles, they might see beauty, but it doesn't move them, doesn't make even a scratch, because it's nothing. We have to invest all our lives, not to outside, but to inside, to ourselves. Anything which stops, as I told you, anything which stops before grave is waste of time. Anything you search and stops before grave is waste of efforts. It's only that which goes beyond is valuable, and that's usually something which you develop. Because one, you develop it within, it with you. Wherever you are, there you are, that's where you are, and you create your beauty even on the most ugly place and deserted island. And not only that, we never know a day when misfortune might strike, when we suddenly lose certain functions. We might not be able to move, we might be hit by stroke or other disability, which suddenly would anchor us to a place. We cannot anymore fool around running, and suddenly we have to live on a dividend of what we have got inside. And if there is nothing, we have nothing to live for and nothing to draw from. And life becomes boring, life becomes dreadful, and you are no joy to yourself or to anybody around you. And sometimes, it's just a beginning of long-term suffering, not only in the body, but in the spirit. You see, we try to, in some peculiar way, escape certain pains and certain sufferings in this life. We want to always, have only fun and easy things, but it's so necessary for us to suffer sometimes. It's so necessary for us to feel pain, because that builds our spiritual substance, our soul, our character. Physical pain is pain of the body only. But the suffering and loss is pain of the heart, pain of the soul, and we have to experience that. So we know we transcend them. So don't run sometimes from tests of life. Don't consider yourself unlucky that something befell you, because there is always a good lesson. There is always something good coming out of it. And the beauty of it, you might not know at that moment. You feel only the darkness. But give it 10 years or whatever, and you realize how good it was not for you. So, all what I'm saying is that nobody wants to suffer, but sometimes it is good, If you go to a doctor and he has to do some operation, you might feel the pain and you scream and you don't want, but when it's over, it might be good for you. And the same this way, we should develop ourselves both ways. Believing in certain things, is exciting, And searching for certain things is exciting. Lots of people don't do it. Nothing moves them. They are so dull in their essence that there is no wonder in life. I have read some of these incredible encounters, like for example, I think I mentioned it in a book, New Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. There was a story about this film director who had psychokinetic powers, and he can make things move and levitate, and he was brought to a police station because I think he went too fast or something in a car or whatever. But anyway, the cop is having him there, say, okay, sit here, and he writes, what's your name and date of birth and all that. The director is quite bored with all this interrogation, and that policeman had a few pencils in his little cup or something there on the table, so he focused on one of these pencils, and that pencil just went out and started to levitate position itself horizontally and start to slowly move. And this cub is writing, and suddenly he sees it, in front of him. He looked on it, and looked on him, and said, "Stop fooling around and just continue writing." I mean, that's the whole thing, that some people just, you cannot show them, doesn't matter what you do. And this is it. We only see that what we are capable of seeing, that what we are capable of believing. There is a saying, if the thief or a pickpocket suddenly saw the angel standing in front of him, the only thing he would remember about that angel would be his pockets. We tend to always remember that. What should ask more, and as more refined we are, more we start to. We cannot understand that in others, what we don't understand in ourselves. So in order to say about somebody who is good, he is a good man, you must be a good person too. He is a clever person. How do you know he's clever? If you are not clever yourself, to assess that cleverness, We always only judge up to the level we are capable of understanding. So to see the worth and goodness in others is directly proportional to our own worth and goodness, and that's why we appreciate. So great people are only appreciated by other great people, and as it goes, So we have to evolve in order to know more, grasp more. And all these beliefs, as I was mentioning, these mysteries are inconsequential. Earth is full of mysteries. I could speak about nothing else than mysteries. I could go into annals of mysteries. And there are libraries full of books about moving coffin, people levitating, people being in two places at the same time, werewolves, whatever you want. Every legend is based on some sort of reality. But this is inconsequential, because these things really are, for those who believe, they are more than those who don't. Those who see it would see it. I mean, if you are up to Sasquatch trail and you spend 30 years of your life chasing that creature, I'm sure that at a certain point you stumble across it, and you meet lots of people who would swear they saw it, That's how the life goes, We get into a company, and that company would be the same as our predispositions. Misery loves company, but the success also loves company, Those who believe in something, looking for a company of those who believe in that particular something, and not others. So we have to say, okay, fine, this is what I want out of life. In order to achieve it, you write down what you want to achieve, what kind of people you want to mingle with, and what environment you want to be in. And I can assure you, if you keep it in your mind and you go after it, it would yield, it would happen. We don't know how quickly we transform from one zone into the other, and how quickly we tend to forget that once that was our reality. It's now just a distant dream, we don't even believe it. I mentioned a long time ago that little experience I had with butterflies, if you remember it, that taught me tremendously about what reality is all about. For those who have not heard it, I'll just quickly repeat it. When I was a kid, I loved butterflies. I tend to run into the fields and I would collect them and catalog them. And generally, butterflies were everywhere. But I was a different person. I was a kid. I wrote poems, read poetry, tried to be creative. I love nature. And I was basically useful for so-called practical aspects of life. And then I got into this so-called practical life, and I become a technical person. And I started to study technical stuff, the manuals. I acquired responsibilities. The responsibilities were for people, environment, and equipment, for success of business. And I had no time to collect butterflies. I had no time to read poetry. I read technical manuals. I read books which dealt with my line of interests, which were very down to earth. And one day I realized that it's been a very long time since I have seen a butterfly. And I sort of concluded that they must not exist. Pollution killed them. They've been extinct. Until I met kids and I asked them, hey, have you seen any butterflies? And they said, oh yeah, quite a few of them. So I started to ask myself, how come the kids could see them and I don't? Then I analyzed myself and I came into conclusion that I'm a different person than when I saw the butterfly. So I decided to see whether I can see them better if I start reading poetry. So I forced myself to read poetry, which now I've considered a waste of time. Before it was everything. I would cry over the lines. Now I was so hardened that nothing moved me. But slowly, but surely, softening myself, going for little walks, trying to think useless, unpractical thoughts, just thoughts of beauty, got me to a position that one day I actually saw the butterfly. And I realized that my reality changed. And everything in that reality, which before I have strongly lived part of and believed, faded. A new reality superimposed itself, which was harsh and suited for a purpose I was doing at a time. But if I have not called myself, that I have changed, I was not even aware of it. I thought I grew, I thought I matured. If I have not brought myself back to that level of child, I would have never seen that beauty again. And this is the thing, that we are sort of beaten up, we become jaded in life, and that beautiful something which we all had at the beginning, we don't even know it ever existed. Or we look on it as well, it was a long time ago. But until you experience it again, being years and years older, you realize what you have really lost or what you have neglected. Because life is not a work. Life is not creating numbers and widgets, and whatever. Life is to enjoy the beauty, to feel the universe, to feel yourself being part of it, to grow internally, to be soft, to be loving, to be kind and understanding. And if you have these qualities within you, you will do good, you will want to do good, and you will never do wrong. But it's only when things start changing. So I feel that we do have a certain options, and that we cannot blame anybody else except ourselves when we reach a certain stage in life and we don't like to see what we see. I think that there is no harm done if you lose some of the battles, in life, because you might win the war at the end, I live in an age of competition. When I see that harshness, that competition everywhere, people competing, men against women, women against children, whatever, it just goes on and on everywhere. What life is that? That survival of the fittest is the harm to the soul, to the environment, and to everything which life stays for. I think that we should develop totally different qualities, so we don't have a situation as we have it today, world in fear, in pain, and in suffering. Because what we are doing, we are creating conditions where future generations might not at all exist, because it will be unbearable. The way things continues and the way things are unfolding, you can easily say with confidence that today is the best day of the years to come. Because everything after might get worse, you might have less freedom, air might be more polluted, there'll be more chemicals in the food, working hours might be longer, you'll be more monitored, your freedom might be taken away. It just goes on and on, because things tend to usually decline if you do nothing about them, rather than improve. It's a law. The inertia, it sets in, and things tend to disintegrate. So you have to put yourself into a position where instead of going with the stream, you start swimming against it. You create effort to escape that maras, and not to think with everybody else, but to keep your head above. And you can do that by developing certain integrity, certain determination, and joy, because joy comes from efforts, from strife. You might not achieve, you might not get all this understanding, but by simple fact of striving, you already go there. You already have changed, you already have achieved. And I think that mundane world create mundane people and mundane things. Interest about things which are on a borderline, on the edges, usually is a flavor. It's something like a dessert, you know. I always find incredible joy reading about something about white buffalo or three-headed cow. Doesn't matter what it is, you know, because it's screwed up the system, you know. It just should not happen, you know. It goes against the grain, and I feel, thanks God, that there is still some creativity left. There is still some space for some wonderful things to be. So I study always, looking for answers, and more I'm looking, more I realize how people are only interested but not looking. They just sort of want to have a wow thing happening, not necessarily to understand them, but just to have them around so they can be titillated. They have something to talk about around a coffee table. But God forbid if it really happened to them. You know, it's nice to talk about this ghost somebody saw, and you know, until somebody pops in front of you in the middle of the night somewhere, then you take it very differently. It's very good to be interested about some Sasquatch until it chases you in a forest, you know. It's very interesting to hear about these flying saucers and all until one lands on your backyard and takes you for a ride, you know. So I discovered from experience that what people say and what people do might not necessarily be totally in harmony. Actually, it might be exactly opposite. So do not trust other people's agreements on certain issues if it is only armchair agreement, if you're all just sitting and talking about it. Just Monday expedition and you see who goes with you on it, you know, you discover that suddenly you'll be alone because lots of people will realize that they're just too close to reality, you know. So evolution of individual is a very peculiar thing, and it's a lonely quest. It doesn't matter how many people you might go with, you always walk alone, you know. You have to realize that there is a certain estrangement in being different. And being different means that you know something other people don't know. You've seen things which others have not seen. Or you think about things others are not thinking, you know, in some ways. So being different is danger to you when everybody is the same, you know. Sometimes it's wise to keep quiet about certain interests and certain things, because you never know what might happen. Those who have reported seeing UFOs or being on a board, they know, they can tell you what it means when they start talking about it, you know. The same with spiritual thing. You tell somebody that you meditate, and that's a very innocent statement, but you might be surprised what sort of you might hear in response, you know. You are already different sitting here and listening to things, you know. You are already open to something which most of the people are closed. Now, to be close to something, like I said, can be for various reasons. Maybe people are not intellectually up to grasping certain things. They don't want to be disturbed because they feel frightened when certain uncertainty is developed in their mind about certain things. Lots of people like to have a word very clear. Any explanation will do. Doesn't matter how wrong it might be, as long as there is an explanation. It's that uncertainty which drives them crazy. You know, and so people tend to sort of gravitate to these so-called securities. But there is no outside security, you know. It's a big mistake to think about by having certain consensus, by sharing certain truisms, solve the problems. The only security which is worth having is the internal strength, internal security. You invest everything to it, you'll be fine. You invest everything outside, you'll be sorry. Because you might use it in a flash. Look, all these people who had these pension funds in America, that was their security until everyone proved them otherwise, you know. Where is their security? There are lots of people who put their securities into their job and they might be fired. Where is their security? You know, they put all their eggs into the same basket, so to speak, into the family until family disintegrates. You know, where is the security? They build a house until one day it burns down. Where is the security? As I've said, anything which can be taken away in fire is not worth, you know, paying attention to very much. Build it inside, so when the house goes on fire, when they fire you from work or whatever happened, you are still the same. because you know, within you, you feel your strength. You know you are in command, and that will never change. Wherever you are, the faith is the most incredible thing to have, because it's spiritual knowledge. Faith is a spiritual knowledge. It's not just some sort of a figment, you know. The faith is sort of something, if you have strong faith in it, it will eventually come your way, and you will see it. Lots of people lack faith, and then, because they don't have a faith, they have no goal to shoot for. There is no force which can make them to go after it. They will give up very easily. But faith allows you to overcome anything. Makes you to believe anything. It's very strong force. So don't use your reason. If you look on people who succeeded in whatever walks of life, it was not their logic very frequently. It was their faith. Their faith to overcome, to see that goal irrespective of obstacles. Go when everybody says, no, it cannot be done. They just smile, and then, because they already saw it. Faith is basically believe in things unseen. And the reward of faith is that finally you see that what you believe in, and it will come. I know from my experience in life that it is only by faith I was saved, not by cleverness, not by logic, but a strong faith which went contrary to everything which one can consider to be logical. The way I years and years back escaped from communist country was purely based on faith. Faith that I would succeed. The things which happened to me on the way were so contrary to any logic and so-called normal that without faith there was no way I could be now standing here and talking to you. I've many times in my life have used faith as the only light to move me ahead. Everything else was just totally bullshit. But I've seen people who lost faith, and even if they had much more going for them than I would have, they've got nowhere. And really sort of faith is a spiritual quality. And it just doesn't come to you because you want to have a faith. You have to prepare yourself like everything else, and then the faith will be there. It won't shatter the walls which holds them. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that we must move ahead. You know, every day is a day of opportunity, and every day we have not used for that opportunity is a day which would testify against us one day. We should really go for what we feel is worth going for, and not to give up. Keep it in mind, keep it in heart, and develop a certain way of continuously being with it subconsciously. We don't need to think about these things, because we know it's always in our background, whether it is the pure love towards our fellow man, whatever, whether it's a desire of having something, doing something, achieving something. As long as it is there, it works. It works. I said things grow in darkness. Then things grow when we don't see them growing, and that's what it is, you know. It grows. You put a plant, you put a seed, and it doesn't matter whether it's a spiritual soil. It's just good soil. It's a good air. It just grows. You don't see it growing. As I said, grass grows by itself. Farmer goes into the field every day, and he planted a little corn, and one day I realized it's above his head. How did that happen? He doesn't ever seen it grow, so to speak. It just comes. And that's how it is, you know. We never know what would come out of that little desire, that little seed we have planted. I've searched all kind of things. I have a lot of seeds in me, you know. I have such mysteries, and I said, I could be very specific and entertain you with individual stories and encounters, but there's no point. You can go to a library, you can read tons of it, you can listen to it on television, all kinds of programs, and all what I'm trying to say that it's very subjective. There is no objectivity to it. What happens to you and where it happens to you and how it happens to you would be very unique for you. There might be some similarities. But the similarities might not necessarily be similarities because that's how the phenomenon manifests. It can be similarities because you already heard about it somehow, somewhere, and you pick up the key words, key indicators, and so to build, that particular experience, it automatically closes itself to what is already in you and try to manifest that way. It's like when I read some of the spirits, they say, well, when we communicate through this medium, we are limited by the vocabulary of that medium and by the grooves in his brain to be able to perceive this type of information. If he is not trained to think in that direction, he won't be able to even perceive the thoughts in that direction which we give. We feel like actors who happen to run into a sort of a chest full of different garments, and we are trying to pick what is there and dress ourselves and play the roles. So if that chest is empty, there's very little to dress ourselves. We cannot portray very much, and the same with people. Their thoughts are the garments we use, to close our words and all. So I'm saying, well, really, richer we are within us, richer we are with our ideas, with our experiences, with our thoughts and feelings, more likely this reality which comes out can be manifesting itself in a much richer, greater and meaningful way. So there is nothing lost. Everything we absorb in some ways would come out eventually. So people who are empty of things within, they will have very little eventually without. All what I'm saying is that we have these crop circles. Every year they are different, more and more bizarre. They are bizarre in a line of people thinking. They would say, well, okay, they are all circles, and when they start believing they are all circles, next year there'll be a crop full of squares and triangles, and they say, okay, fine, the square and triangles, but still, it doesn't give any sense, So the next year after you would have square and triangles, you would have different ratios, with sort of basic geometric, rules and Mandelbrot sets, and it suddenly becomes very mathematical. And it just goes on and on. Every time sort of, it's like some consciousness is reading the minds and level skepticism or belief and say, okay, I'll show you next time, And that way they're shifting the awareness and growth of those who are interested about it. So when you plug your mind into something, it might be very simple to start with, but if you focus on it, you realize it becomes very wonderful and complex. And you never outdo it. That intelligence which shifts us on our evolutionary process, is always one or two steps ahead of us, So it manifests itself in a way which might be very novel, but they will be still understood. There is never such a gap that you're facing something totally unrecognizable and incomprehensible. Even in a UFO lore, if you look onto UFOs and you see how they've been described by those who've been inside and who've been sort of privileged to talk to these so-called contactees, and you read the early contactees from the 1947 up, Angelo Bertolucci and all these people, that was well before the time we had, let's say, computers, and television was black and white, and things were very primitive. So when these interior designs of these crafts were described, there was never ever mentioning about they had computers, color televisions, or whatever. It was reflecting the acceptable reality of that time with a slight improvement on it, but still very comprehensible. Now, if you talk to a contactees, doesn't matter who it is, and he doesn't mention sophisticated computers, you don't even believe he was on UFO, It's just everything is shifting and go sort of in a way. And this is true with our understanding, Look, if you look how the scientists saw our brain, it leads you to believe that nothing is real. It just mimics our thoughts. When we got a telegraph, people thought the brain was like a telegraph, like a telephone. This started central connectors and everything. And then just evolved, there was a big calculators, and now brain is a big computer. And God knows what else will come after we bypass that our technologies. If you have a truth, if you know something is for certain, the truth should never change. Truth should always be the same. That's right, it's true. If it is something you can change, it was not a really truth. You thought it might be, but it was not. The truth is truth. And because we don't have any truth, that's why we can change opinions and theories and things. We have really no real anchor. We think we are anchored, but it's a bubble we are anchored to. Our reality is created purely by rumors, when you really listen. What people seriously thought of what world is all about, from most of the angles, scientific angle and whatever, just 200 years ago. And we read it, we are laughing. Even those who have no sufficient high school education might be laughing because it's so primitive and so simple. But at that time, people were not laughing, they took it very seriously. Those people 200 years ago, I'm sure were laughing on thoughts of their ancestors 200 years before them. Well, there is no guarantee that 200 years from now, what is still around, people would not be laughing about the way we saw the world today. Because there is no truth. We just always uncover. It's like an onion, you peel one layer. There's no one waiting, you peel, and suddenly there is no onion. But you can still continue peeling, Reality is like that. We are unfolding one thing other and all, and we create. Because everything what we have believed came from the mind of somebody who stated it first, from the observation of somebody who saw it first. And until somebody dared to see differently, it would hold. But then somebody comes and says, well, that's true, but if you look deeper, then there is, and then he specifies something. And because he already described how it should look, other will come and, yeah, I see it too. Before you realize, we have not only atom, but you have quarks, which are small parts of atom, and you have charms, and you go deeper and deeper, until somebody says, well, really, if you have a very powerful microscope, you get this smashing chamber and all, you can sort of pulverize these quarks and all. They are actually little frogs, and I can assure you there'll be a day that we sort of consider as a basic building blocks of life, And actually, these frogs, the Jean-Paul Getty, the famous billionaire, richest man in the world, he actually got a theory once that origin of life came from frogs. And that's true. He believed it so strongly that he wrote an article about it. But obviously nobody wanted to publish it in his right mind. So he sort of bought some newspapers and made it published, So that's one way how you can get across your views. But the point is that reality is what you believe. And if you have an authority which is behind that reality, then you influence lots of people. The consensus doesn't happen by suddenly everybody everywhere else got the same idea and they agree. No, somebody somewhere put that idea and people believe it, so they repeat it. Before you realize it got quoted, becomes solid, becomes dogma, and everything is built on that dogma. That's why some of these theories shattered so badly one day, because suddenly somebody started thinking about them rather than accepting them for free and for granted. You have to question everything, especially that what is nobody questions. Because everybody believes it must be like that, and that's what holds our progress. If you believe that gravity cannot be overcome because there are natural force, well, nobody would try to build machines and overcome the gravity because it's a law, how it can work against the law. Until somebody dares, So the heretics build our realities, not the ordinary orthodoxy. It is the guy who is against something. Eventually, will change everything else. The dogma is from the heretics. Dogma doesn't happen from the day one. Dogma one day was a new idea which nobody believed except that guy who came out with it. Somehow it survived him, got life of its own, until eventually accepted that as an absolute reason. And that is everything. What we believe today, it's not because it's solid. Truth. It's because so many people accepted that. The thing is painful. Not many people want to rethink something. It calls for all kind of investment in time and efforts, you know, to study and work for, you know. Doesn't matter whether you know certain things or not know certain things. You still would be hungry, you know. To know that life is on a mark, or the universe is finished, doesn't cure your headache, you know, or a toothache. So there are other considerations, and people ordinarily gravitate toward the things of the body rather than toward the things of the mind and things of the soul, because it doesn't affect them. We all believe in these type of things. Like I said, with a very little impact on your appetite or on your toothache. So it's good to know you fill your head, you know, but it doesn't really matter too very much, because any theory, you know, is a knowledge to everybody. But that doesn't mean that it has any meaning. Sometimes it's good to know nothing because you are pristine and pure, not contaminated, than to know that it is not true. It's hard to knock it out, and it prevents you from getting something fresh and good into you. So don't jump readily to embrace anything, because I can assure you it's wrong. If you spend time to prove it, you prove it. That's why we have this so-called shadow science or dark economy or whatever. People always find the other angle to it, you know. I can tell you, you can go to any field of science and pick up any theory. This is so-called mainstream theory, whether it's theory of evolution or whatever, subatomic big energy, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. And I can give you a dozen of heretics who are educated, full of beans, and disprove all that. You know, but when you are in control, you don't let these guys to upset your appetite. You don't give them a chance to kick you out of your position. You are a professor of something. I don't want any upstart, you know, who might not have even finished high school to tell me that I'm wrong. He might be right, but my God, I would not let him to make me unemployed. So that's what's happening, you know, that we have lots of bright people who would never be able to get ahead because they're not in a position to make waves. I have read stories about scientists who have clearly shown that Einstein's theory of relativity done more harm, general relativity, than good. Because it's wrong, and we do experiments and spending money in research, it would never work because it's based on the wrong assumption. But it doesn't really matter because we have agreed that that's the stream we go. And if you want to disprove these theories, you cannot, because you don't get any money from anybody. There is no granting body in the world who would, let's say, give you money to disprove Einstein. You see, you must be crazy. This guy is a lunatic. Because all these peers review, all these consensus would say, no, Einstein is right. Now, even if you got some money because you had opportunity to get money, you don't get very far because all the equipment built today in research is to support experiments you believe in, not to disprove them. So in order to disprove, you have to probably build completely new type of equipment which don't exist yet in order to be able to demonstrate it. It's just become complicated. We are getting sort of very, very narrow in our views. We know more and more about less and less. And eventually you would know everything or nothing, as they say. You know. It is a problem, you know, because, you know, you have to have a broad view. But if you have a narrow view, well, it becomes interesting, but it doesn't. I become isolated eventually. And that's what we're doing. So I have a book, which is a book of greatest inventions of 20th century. And they interviewed the major inventors living at that time. You know, the guy who invented the Xerox machine, the guy who invented Kodak film, the guy who invented chips, the guy who invented this and that. just big inventions, you know, which changed the economy of the world and all. These people were interviewed, how they got into it, how they got an idea, how they invented it, what problems they encountered to make it real and all. And it's a very interesting reading showing the original mind, original thinking. But one thing all these people agreed upon, independently, if they had the opportunity to do this invention again in the time we are now, will they be able to do it? And all of them said, impossible. And they explained it, you know. Because we think differently. Everything is working on committees. There is no mothering anymore accepted. Even in a company, everything, you get money, you have to show what you deliver. It just goes on and on and on. Creativity being snuffed. That's why we don't have any major invention. We have only virtual improvement, as I call it, you know. We make it better looking. We add few flashing lights, screw here, screw there, but principles are not created. They just build upon, you know. We don't create. Creativity of mankind is reduced. We are not as good as our forefathers, for sure. We don't have Newtons, Einsteins, you know, Beethoven, Mozart. It's just become very mediocre and goes like that. Anyway, I think I'll take entertain you for 2 hours without you even knowing about it. It's 10 to 9, so we might ask a few questions if you want. And I'll happily answer them. Doesn't matter what pops into your head. And we'll close the evening. Any questions? Nothing? There you go.
Yeah, what about some of the questions on the theme for the evening, like crop circles?
Well, I'll put it this way. Crop circles is a sort of a phenomenon which got a really attention in the last, I would say, 20 years. They are, however, documented to be around for much longer. Some old paintings, you know, going back centuries, indicate that there was such a thing as a crop circle. Now, at the past, because everything was religion-based, they've been looked upon as a work of the devil, and most of the time, no other attention was paid except that priests might do some song and dance on the side to get that devil, you know, exercise from it. Now, crop circles originally started very simple, as a circus. So, general belief was that people do it, you know, because, and then there were theories depending what profession you are in. There was this famous Canadian meteorologist, you know, who wrote a book where he tried to explain all the crop circles to the effect of the whirlwinds, you know, in a certain way. And that obviously was disproved because, like I've said, when you think they are only circles, they start to be more complicated, more complex, and suddenly explanation of wind doing it couldn't hold. There were others who originally believed, and these are all serious theories published, that actually hedgehogs are doing it. You know, the hedgehogs go at night and stamping on this grass in some peculiar way and creating these circles until that simply was disproved. So, as we went every year, the circles were getting more baffling. They were appearing mostly in Europe, around Glacial and Stone Age and in that part of England, but eventually they spread to other countries, and now they are appearing pretty well all over the world, not with the same quality and sort of complexity. There were people who actually tried to step into it and create these circles on their own by going at night, but they've been easily distinguished from the real circles. Because what they do, they would trample on the grass, for example, or on a weed and break it in order to get it. But the real circle is not broken. It's actually the stem itself is sort of like there's some sort of a heat applied or something, just sort of melts to that angle, you know, there is no breakage. And it continues to grow horizontally. There are other characteristics in a circle which is done this supernatural way, which would not be available in a man-made circle. And if you are a crop circle researcher, they call them some serologists, like serologists. You discover quickly by glance what is man-made and what cannot be man-made. I will assure anybody who has to cut a grass and who've been doing some work in farms and fields that they would understand very quickly what is possible and what they would be trying to do if they try to fake something and what they would not even touch. The circles today are so complex, so complicated, and the pattern of weaving of the weed and all is so sophisticated that it's impossible to do. And like I said, there are theories which are as wild as you can go. You know, people, some from the man-made circles, all of them, to miracles coming from heaven, extraterrestrial doing it, consciousness communicating with some super consciousness doing it. We have all kind of theories depending on who is producing them. If he's electrician, he might have his own view. If he is some sort of esotericist or occultist, he might have another view. If he's a new ager or something, or if he's a farmer, it varies. But the reality is that it's wonderful, it's happening every year. Nobody yet caught a maker of a true crop circle. Doesn't matter how they try. The crop circles are smart. You put a camera there because you think that's where it will happen. All the indications are that in this area things are happening and they must happen. And you have that camera day and night, infrared, whatever running, and nothing happens. So you decide to take it out. You take it out the next day, you have a crop circle. I mean, this is the way it works, you know. So I knew Andrew Collins and Ross Pringle and all kind of people who are cutting edge researchers. And it is obvious that they make a living out of it. They have to perform and they have to deliver. But they are as baffled as everybody else. Their explanation is only a temporary grasping of straws, you know, so to speak, to get something across. But I look on them as a wonderful manifestation of something which was said in Shakespeare and Hamlet. There is more things between heaven and earth than our dictionary or whatever. So anyway, yeah.
What is your personal opinion? Do you think it might be just a physical phenomena that we haven't understood yet or discovered, or is there something from beyond our own planet involved?
Well, my feeling is that these manifestations definitely are physical phenomena as far as the actual final outcome. If you physically feel that something sort of bended a beat or created a pattern. Now, evidence is that there no machineries are involved. Like, nobody has seen any machineries, but there is some evidence that some little flying objects, some balls, usually appear in that area of a circle. And suddenly, that circle appears. There is no sort of 1 hour type effort to build it. At one moment, it is not there, and you look around, and it is there. Actually, I was reading just a few days ago a description of how the circle was formed by a farmer from the United States who saw it. And he said, well, first it looked to me like a sort of surface of the water. Indeed, was sort of, you know, like disturbed, and suddenly, bang, bang, 2 black holes like appeared, and that was it. It was the circle. There is this guy who filmed creation of that circle. I think it was in England, an amateur, and you can see that there's these 2 little balls flying like a ball lightning, you know, over the field, once or twice, small, about a foot in diameter, and suddenly the whole area would be sort of influenced by something invisible, and it's like you get a huge cookie cutter or a press. The circle appears instantaneously, so it took about 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So I would say obviously there is some sort of an interaction, some energy of some kind, which might be a material in essence, but maybe in vibration or visible to our eyes, you know, it makes that imprint. But again, you see, we're using our logic to understand it, but we are 3-dimensional beings. This information, these things happening might be of other dimension which we cannot see and comprehend. And so it is magic to us. But there is no difference between magic and logic. In the past, lots of things were magic, and now we say it's quite logical. The day might come, we will understand the principle of this. There is no such a thing as a miracle in nature. Miracle means basically something which we have not yet explained, nonetheless we can observe and see, you know, but it's based on some laws and things, and we might be smart enough one day to grasp it. But point is that I would say that there is interaction between intelligence, which definitely sense our state of mind, know-how, and level of comprehension, and in some ways try to manifest itself in such a way that it educates us to other realities, but slowly and gradually increasing the complexity. It's like some sort of a puzzle, some test, IQ test, Rubik's Cube of kind, you know, trying to teach us something. And maybe one day we get it until it becomes like you get these puzzles, you know, you say A, and so somebody tunes that number and it's A, and then C, and suddenly you guess the whole word. You know these games, you know, they have on television, you know, Jeopardy or whatever. And this is the same. You get one circle, and that might be A, and then something else happens, and so it looks to me like X, but it doesn't have a meaning. So they're trying and trying, and suddenly it's all spelled out. So wow, finally you get it. I think it's an interaction where level of consciousness is being challenged and sort of elevated, not for everybody. Like, crop circle has a meaning only to those who are interested in crop circles. Those who don't believe in them, don't care about them, what difference it makes how it looks? It's outside of the level of perception consciousness. It doesn't affect them. That's why I said the realities are very selective. So for each person there is something which makes him tick. And crop circles are broader exposure to something which we have not known anything about before. And now facing it on a day-to-day basis, we start accepting something prior to that we would have never entertained as a possibility. So it's a certain change in our perception. It may be a cosmic plan, maybe Earth itself is responding to situations, you know, we have created, and one way of communicating is through a symbolism, because if you look into the occult material and you study esotericism, you discover that symbolism is the most potent way of expressing thoughts and ideas. You know, not an alphabet, it's a symbolism. You can say so much in one symbol. The present library is full of books if you know how to read that symbol. So anyways, maybe these are the symbols, you know, which try to tell us something. Yes? So,
with these symbols, why is it they claim that sometimes, if you've never seen a symbol, and you look at these symbols, they seem to have great impact on you? Is that from, where's that from?
Well, like I said, you know, we do not know how we are internally developed or how we are developing. Not everybody would have the same response. You might see the crop circle and makes no difference to you. Somebody else might see in that something reflects from within. Now, this is what I'm trying to say, that there is a certain process of elevation, upgrading our whatever memory patterns, you know, bringing us towards understanding. Maybe you don't see the symbols in it today, but just chase these crop circles, be interested in them, and suddenly you realize, you know, it all makes sense, you know. It's like everything else, you know. You get a tree and you're going and you say, oh well, it's just a tree. You get a painter who's a beautiful, and you go on that tree and my God, you know, you paint the painting, you say, I never seen anything, but that's it, you know, that's how it goes, you know. We are all artists of some time in our souls, and we see things differently, and we just, like I said, we all are different, we all respond differently. And I have read some people who created all kind of working models based on the circles. They translate them into three-dimensional reality, all kind of spinning, you know, gyroscopes and stuff. I've seen other people who have read message given to us through the circles. It's just like everything else, you know. Just go on, figure, you know. Anyway, folks, it's 9:05. I know that we have to be out of here at a certain time, which is particular now, so I thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't probably answer everything, but I'm trying.
Okay, thanks again, John. Appreciate that. Now, I have a crop circle publication. I don't know where that is right now. If anyone wants to take a look at that after, yeah, just want to pass around, take a look at it. Also, you all have, most of you have my email address. If anyone has any idea or some topic that you would like to submit, feel free to submit that to me and run it past John, and you might have something that you'd like him to address, so that'd be great. And certainly we'll have some more talks, I'm sure, in the new year.
Sure. You know, as far as this our craft, I really have so much beautiful demonstrations in movies and other about crop circles, any mysteries you want. We had a seminar in summer, we talked about maybe we should do something similar again, and we can focus. I can bring Sarah to show some wonderful crop circles. I have also that movie which shows how this crop circle happened. And all, and we can sort of go more in depth, you know, but I talked to Neil, and I'm putting together a list of books which I feel would help you if you have a specific interest, and maybe he might email it to you, or we can Xerox it and bring it here, and you can pick up any of these books either through the library or chase it, and read more about it. I don't want to necessarily be just nuts and bolts. I'm trying to avoid to say, circles really are called by extraterrestrials, you know, they have this beam technology, and they just sort of laser, they have these projectors, and then just, there are theories, I can repeat them. If you are interested in crop circles, then you go on a web, you go on internet, there are tremendous, you know, web pages, you know, of pictures and theories and speculations, but I'm always saying, I don't like to accept beliefs, I just absorb information. Circle this, circle that, square, whatever, it happened. I don't know why it's happening. Some people maybe they are much smarter because they can make this explanation from just looking at one or two circles, you know. I've seen thousands of them, I still don't know what the heck is going on. I'm sure I'm more confused now than I was at the beginning. I was quite certain that I understood it, and now I feel I'm absolutely certain that I don't know what it is all about. But that's how it goes in life, you know. I'm trying to just throw bombs, you know, say, hey, listen, look, think about it yourself. Maybe you come up with some good idea, and you can next time tell me, well, I thought this is what you have said, and this is how I see it, and that's what I want, you know. People come to their own ideas. I don't want to bring some other idea. You can find it yourself, you know. I want you to think, get feel for it, get interest. The simple fact that it is, you know, it's sufficient. Now, if you find what it is, well, that's good. We all die with our beliefs. We are the product of our beliefs, you know. And so, whatever you start believing in, it will start affecting you in that way.
Okay, well, thanks again, Jan, and of course,